The scream echoed through the dense forest, causing the birds to take flight in panic. My heart raced as I ran towards the sound, the branches whipping my face as I plunged deeper and deeper into the Amazon jungle. The suffocating humidity clung to my shirt, but I hardly noticed. All that mattered was getting to Carlos. When I finally burst into the small clearing, I was paralyzed by the scene in front of me. Carlos was on his knees, his wide eyes fixed on something on the ground. His hands were shaking violently as he pointed at what appeared to be... No, it couldn't be. "Dr. Oliveira," he stammered, his voice barely above a hoarse whisper. What is that?" I approached slowly, my eyes struggling to process what I was seeing. There, partially buried in the mud, was a skull. But it wasn't a human skull, or that of any animal I'd ever seen in my 20 years as a paleontologist. It was elongated and reptilian, with huge eye sockets and a row of sharp teeth that seemed capable of tearing flesh with ease. The most disturbing thing, however, was its proportions. It was too big to be from a known reptile, but too small for a dinosaur. And then I noticed the markings. Delicate and precise inscriptions covered the surface of the skull, forming intricate patterns that were definitely not natural. That was a work of art. "Impossible," I muttered, more to myself than to Carlos. "My name is Dr. Rafael Oliveira. I'm a Brazilian paleontologist specializing in prehistoric reptiles from South America. Or at least, that's what I thought my specialty was until that fateful moment in the Amazon. The expedition was supposed to be routine, another search for ancient crocodilian fossils to add to my already extensive research collection. I could never have imagined that we were about to make a discovery that would shake the foundations of human history and reality itself as we know it. In the days following that first shocking discovery, our small team worked feverishly to excavate the site. With each new layer of earth removed, more inexplicable artifacts came to light. Ceramic fragments with the same intricate patterns as the skull, tools made of a metal we couldn't identify, and the most disturbing thing, more bones, many more. At night, gathered around the campfire, we tried to make sense of what we were digging up. The theories ranged from the absurd to the apocalyptic. "Maybe it's a kind of intelligent reptile that evolved in parallel with humans," suggested Maria, our anthropologist, although her voice betrayed her own incredulity. "Or aliens," muttered Carlos, earning skeptical looks from everyone. I remained silent, my mind a storm of possibilities and implications. If what we were discovering was real, and every fiber of my scientific being screamed that it couldn't be, then everything we thought we knew about evolution and Earth's history was wrong. It was on the fifth night that things started to get really strange. I was making my nightly rounds of the camp's perimeter when I heard a sound that chilled my blood. A low, prolonged hiss, definitely not human, coming from the darkness of the forest. Instinctively, I pointed my flashlight in the direction of the noise. For a moment, so brief that I wondered if it was my imagination playing tricks on me, I saw two eyes reflecting the light. Eyes that were too big, positioned the wrong way for any animal I knew. The next moment, they disappeared. I ran back to camp, my heart hammering in my chest. I woke up the team and reported what I had seen, or thought I had seen. At first, they tried to calm me down, saying that it was probably just some nocturnal animal, but I could see the fear growing in their eyes as I spoke. "I don't think we're alone here," I concluded, my voice trembling slightly. The rest of the night passed in a state of tense wakefulness. No one was able to sleep, our eyes constantly scanning the darkness beyond the circle of light from our campfire. The sound was not repeated, but the feeling of being watched did not leave us. The next morning, we decided to expand our digging area. If there was more evidence of this civilization, we needed to find it. As we dug, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen the night before. Was it possible that there were still living descendants of these reptilian beings? It was Carlos who made the discovery that would change everything. A cry of surprise made us run to where he was. There, partially exposed by soil erosion, was an entrance. A perfectly circular opening, clearly artificial, leading deep into the earth. We looked at each other. a mixture of excitement and terror overwhelming us. What would we find down there? Ruins of an underground city? More artifacts? Or something alive? The decision to explore the opening was not taken lightly. We spent hours debating the risks and ethical implications. In the end, scientific curiosity prevailed. We couldn't simply ignore what could be the greatest archaeological discovery in history. Equipped with flashlights, ropes, and a makeshift first aid kit, we prepared to descend. I would lead the way, followed by Maria and Carlos. 2 other team members would stay on the surface, ready to seek help if we didn't return within 24 hours. The air immediately became colder and more humid as soon as we entered the opening. The walls were smooth, almost polished, definitely not natural. We descended for what seemed like an eternity, the beam of our flashlights revealing only more darkness ahead. And then, suddenly, the tunnel opened up into an immense chamber. Our flashlights could barely illuminate the soaring ceiling. But what made us gasp in unison were the walls. Covered from end to end with carvings and paintings, they told a story that defied everything we thought we knew. Scenes of an advanced civilization unfolded before our eyes. Reptilian beings building cities, manipulating technologies that seemed futuristic even by our standards. And most shocking, images of these beings interacting with what appeared to be primitive humans. "My God," Maria whispered, her voice echoing in the chamber. "They've been here the whole time." We barely had time to process what we were seeing when a noise made us turn sharply. There, at the entrance to another tunnel we hadn't noticed before, stood a figure, tall, scaly, with big yellow eyes that stared at us with undeniable intelligence. It wasn't a fossil. It wasn't a cave painting. It was real, alive and looking directly at us. The reptilian creature took a step forward, the light from our flashlights reflecting off its iridescent scales. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp teeth, and then it spoke, in perfectly understandable Portuguese, albeit with a strange hiss. "Welcome," said the creature. "We've been expecting you." The shock paralyzed us. That creature, that being that defied everything I believed I knew about evolution and history, not only existed, but spoke our language. My scientific mind struggled to process the impossible before my eyes. "Who? What are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice trembling. The reptilian being tilted its head slightly in a strangely human gesture. "We are the Kihrin, the first inhabitants of this world. You have called us many names over the millennia, gods, monsters, myths, but we have always been here, watching, waiting." Maria stepped forward, her anthropologist's curiosity momentarily overcoming her fear. "Waiting for what?" "The right moment," replied the Kihrin. "And now, finally, you're ready." Before we could ask any more questions, the being gestured, inviting us to follow him. We exchanged nervous glances, but curiosity was stronger than fear. Slowly we began to follow him through the tunnel. As we advanced, more Kihrin appeared, watching us with a mixture of curiosity and what seemed to be expectation. Some carried devices that blinked and hummed softly, technology clearly far beyond our comprehension. Finally, we arrived at an immense circular chamber. In the center, a structure that vaguely resembled a gigantic computer pulsed with a bluish light. All around, dozens of Kihrin worked at consoles, their movements quick and precise. Our guide turned to us. "This is the nexus, the heart of our civilization. From here, we monitor and, when necessary, influence the course of human history." The implication of those words hit me like a punch. "You manipulate our history." "We guide it," corrected Kihrin. "From the beginning, when your ancestors had barely come down from the trees, we were there, teaching, protecting, sometimes intervening when necessary." Carlos, who had been silent until then, exploded. "That's crazy! Why should we believe you?" In response, the Kihrin made a gesture, and a holographic screen materialized in the air in front of us. Images began to flow, scenes from human history, but from a perspective we had never imagined. Kihrin interacting with Egyptian pharaohs, guiding explorers across unknown seas, whispering ideas to scientists and inventors. "Every great discovery, every revolution in human thought," said the Kiharin, "has had our subtle influence behind it." My head spun. If this were true, and a part of me was still struggling to accept it, then the entire history of mankind would need to be rewritten. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why hide? Why not reveal yourself openly?" The Kiharin was silent for a moment, as if pondering his answer. "We haven't always hidden. There was a time when we walked openly among you. We were worshipped as gods in some cultures, feared as demons in others. But we realized that our open presence was distorting the natural course of human development. So we decided to retreat into the shadows, subtly guiding." Maria, who had been absorbing every word with fascination, asked, "What now? Why reveal yourself to us?" "Because the time has come," replied the Kiharin. "The world is on the brink of cataclysmic changes, climate change, overpopulation, the depletion of natural resources. Humanity is heading towards its own destruction, and we can no longer just watch." A shiver ran down my spine. "Are they saying they're going to intervene openly?" "No," said Kirin, shaking his head. "We're saying that you need to intervene. We can provide the knowledge, the technology, the means to save your world, but the choice and the action must be yours." The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of that revelation. I looked at my colleagues and saw in them the same whirlwind of emotions I was feeling: fear, excitement, disbelief, and, above all, an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "Why us?" I finally asked. "Why did you choose to reveal this to a small group of scientists lost in the Amazon?" The Kiharin smiled, or at least made something resembling a smile on his reptilian face. "You're not here by chance, Dr. Oliveira. We've watched you, all of you, for a long time. Your open minds, your dedication to scientific truth, your ability to think beyond conventional limits, you are the ideal messengers." Messengers. The word echoed in my mind. Suddenly, the weight of our discovery, the responsibility we now bore, seemed to crush me. "What if we don't accept?" asked Carlos, his voice betraying a mixture of fear and defiance. "What if we decide to keep it a secret?" Kiharin's gaze turned grave. "Then the fate of humanity will follow its current course, and I fear that course will lead to extinction." At that moment, a siren echoed through the chamber. The Kiharin around the consoles began to move frantically. "What's going on?" I asked, alarmed. Our Kiharin guide looked at one of the monitors, his expression turning grim. "It looks like the choice may no longer be ours. We've been detected." "Detected? By whom?" Maria asked, concern evident in her voice. "By those of your kind who have always known about us," the Kiharin replied. "Those who would prefer to keep our existence a secret, even if it costs the future of humanity." Before we could fully process what that meant, the ground shook beneath our feet. The distant sound of explosions reached us. "They're here," said the Kiharin, his voice laden with urgency. "You need to go, now. Take this." He handed us a small device, no bigger than a smartphone. "All the evidence, all the knowledge you need is here. The future of humanity depends on you bringing this to light." I barely had time to grab the device before another Kiharin pushed us towards a side tunnel. "This path will take you to the surface, far away from here. Run!" I took one last look back, seeing the Kiharin preparing for what seemed to be an imminent battle. The weight of the device in my hand seemed to multiply by the second. As we raced through the tunnel, guided only by the dim light of our almost exhausted flashlights, a certainty formed in my mind. Nothing would ever be the same. The world we knew, the story we believed to be true, everything was about to change. And we were the only ones who could make it happen. The tunnel seemed endless. We ran, guided only by the dim light of our flashlights, the distant sound of explosions propelling us forward. My mind was spinning, trying to process everything we had discovered in the last few minutes. An ancient reptilian civilization, secretly manipulating human history. And now, apparently, under attack by human forces who wanted to keep their existence a secret. "Dr. Oliveira!" Maria's breathless voice brought me back to reality. "Where are we going?" "To the surface," I replied, although I wasn't really sure. "At least that's what Kirin said," Carlos, ever the skeptic, snorted between heavy breaths. "And we're going to trust them like that, after everything they've told us?" I didn't have a chance to answer. The tunnel suddenly opened up into a natural cave, illuminated by weak daylight coming from an opening at the top. We stopped, panting, trying to get our bearings. "There!" Maria pointed. A series of ledges in the rocky wall formed a kind of natural staircase to the opening. We began to climb, the device Kirin had given us weighing down my pocket as if it were made of lead. Every movement was a reminder of the responsibility we now bore. When we finally emerged onto the surface, the contrast with the underground world of the Kirin couldn't have been greater. We were in the middle of the dense Amazon rainforest, the humid, hot air in sharp contrast to the controlled atmosphere of the underground chambers. "Where are we?" asked Carlos, looking around in bewilderment. I quickly consulted my GPS. "About 5 kilometers northeast of our original camp," I replied, surprised. We had covered a considerable distance underground. "What do we do now?" Maria asked, the adrenaline of escape beginning to give way to fear and uncertainty. Before I could answer, the sound of helicopter propellers cut through the air. Instinctively, we ducked for cover under the dense trees. "Damn it!" I whispered. "They must be looking for us." "Who exactly are they?" Carlos asked, his voice a mixture of fear and frustration. "I don't know," I admitted. "But whoever they are, they have enough resources to set up a military operation in the middle of the Amazon. And apparently they want to keep the existence of the Kirin a secret." The sound of the helicopters intensified, and soon we could see flashes of light cutting through the treetops. They were using spotlights to search the area. "We have to move," said Maria, fear evident in her voice. "We can't stay here." I nodded, trying to think quickly. "The river," I decided. "If we can get to the river, we can use the current to move us away quickly and make it harder to track." We started moving through the dense forest, trying to keep as much cover as possible. The sound of the helicopters seemed to be everywhere, echoing between the trees and disorienting our sense of direction. As we advanced, my mind kept returning to the device in my pocket. What exactly did it contain? What secrets of the Kirin were we carrying? And most importantly, how could we use this information to save humanity from itself? After what seemed like an eternity of tense walking, the sound of running water reached our ears. We were close to the river. "Wait," said Carlos suddenly, grabbing my arm. "Did you hear that?" We stopped, sharpening our ears. For a moment, all I could hear was the distant sound of helicopters and the flow of the nearby river. Then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of branches breaking underfoot. Someone was approaching. "Run!" I shouted, abandoning any pretense of secrecy. We shot towards the sound of the water, the sounds of pursuit now clearly audible behind us. Branches whipped our faces as we ran, panic giving us a speed I didn't even know we possessed. Finally, we burst onto the riverbank. The water flowed fast and murky before us, a sight both terrifying and promising. "We have no choice," I gasped. "We have to get in." I barely had time to get a firm grip on the Kirin device before we plunged into the icy water. The current immediately grabbed us, dragging us downstream at an alarming speed. As I struggled to keep my head above water, I could see figures emerging on the riverbank. Men in black, armed, shouting orders to each other. One of them raised something that looked like a gun, aiming it in our direction. I dove in instinctively, the murky water swallowing me whole. The roar of the current drowned out all other sounds, creating a bubble of underwater silence that contrasted dramatically with the chaos of the last few minutes. When I finally surfaced, panting, we were considerably further downstream. There was no sign of our pursuers, but the distant sound of helicopters still hung in the air. "Maria! Carlos!" I called, my voice hoarse. "Over here!" came Maria's reply, a few meters ahead of me. Carlos emerged soon after, coughing and spitting out water. We swam with difficulty to the opposite shore, dragging ourselves out of the water, exhausted and trembling. For a long moment, we lay in the mud, just breathing, trying to process everything that had happened. Finally, I sat up, checking the Kihrin device. To my relief, it was still working, apparently waterproof. "What do we do now?" asked Carlos, his voice laden with exhaustion and fear. I looked at the device in my hand, then at my drenched and terrified colleagues. The reality of our situation finally hit me full force. We were alone, pursued, carrying a secret that could change the course of human history. "Now," I said, my voice firmer than I felt, "now we take this to the world, no matter the cost." Maria nodded slowly, determination replacing the fear in her eyes. Carlos still looked skeptical but didn't protest. As the sun began to set over the vast Amazon rainforest, the three drenched and frightened scientists made a silent pact. The knowledge we carried was bigger than us, bigger than any government or secret organization. It was about the future of humanity, and we would do everything in our power to ensure that this future had a chance. Night fell over the Amazon, enveloping us in an almost palpable darkness. We found refuge in a small clearing, far enough from the river to feel safe, but close enough to hear the constant flow of water, a reminder of our desperate escape. Sitting in a tight circle, our still damp clothes sticking uncomfortably to our skin, we stared at the small Kihrin device resting in the center. Its smooth, dark surface reflected the dim light of the makeshift fire we had managed to light. "So," Carlos broke the tense silence, "does anyone have any idea how to use this thing?" I hesitantly reached out and took the device. It was surprisingly light, and as soon as I touched it, its surface came alive with a soft glow. "Dr. Oliveira," a familiar voice emanated from the device, making us jump in surprise. It was the Kihrin who had guided us. "If you're hearing that, it means you've managed to escape. The knowledge contained in this device is vast and potentially overwhelming. Use it wisely." A holographic interface materialized in the air above the device. Files, diagrams, and videos floated before our wide eyes. "My God!" whispered Maria, her face illuminated by the bluish glow of the holography. This is incredible." I started browsing through the archives, my mind struggling to process the vastness of the information before us. There were detailed records of Earth's history, far earlier than our archaeology had ever dreamed of discovering. Technologies that seemed straight out of a science fiction movie. And, most disturbingly, detailed projections of Earth's future, a bleak future if humanity's current course wasn't altered. "Look at this." I drew the others, attention to one particular file. It appears to be a detailed plan for reversing climate change using a combination of Kihrin technology and terrestrial resources. Carlos leaned forward, his eyes quickly scanning the information. That's revolutionary. If it works, we could literally save the planet." "But at what cost?" asked Maria, her voice filled with concern. "Revealing all this to the world, not just the existence of the Kihrin, but all this advanced technology. It would change everything. The entire fabric of human society would be shaken." I nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility weighing heavily on my shoulders. "You're right, both of you. The potential for good is immense, but the risks..." We were silent for a long moment, the crackling of the fire and the night sounds of the forest filling the air. "We can't make this decision alone," I finally said. "That's too big, too important." "But who can we turn to?" asked Carlos. "The government. After what we've seen, we can't trust them. The media. Who would believe us?" "The scientific community," suggested Maria. "If we present this evidence to the world's leading scientists, perhaps we can build a consensus on how to proceed." I nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it might be our best option. We need allies, people who can understand the magnitude of what we've discovered and help decide the best course of action." While we were discussing our next move, a new section of the Kihrin device activated. A holographic map of South America appeared, with a pulsating dot marking a location on the coast of Peru. "What's that?" asked Carlos, leaning over to examine the map. I touched the pulsating dot and a text message appeared. Safe haven. Allies await. We exchanged glances of surprise and caution. Allies? Asked Maria. Do the Kihrin have more contacts on the surface? It makes sense, I replied thoughtfully. If they've been subtly guiding us for millennia, they must have established a network of reliable humans. Carlos still looked skeptical. What if it's a trap? What if those who were chasing us intercepted this message? It was a valid concern, but something inside me, perhaps the same intuition that had led me to this expedition in the first place, told me that we could trust this information. I think we should take a chance, I finally declared. It's our best chance of getting out of the Amazon and into contact with people who can help us decide what to do with this information. Maria nodded slowly. I agree. Staying here just makes us easy targets. At least this gives us a goal, a direction. Carlos sighed, resigned. I suppose we don't have much choice, but how are we going to get there? We're in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, with no equipment, no supplies. As if answering his question, the Kihrin device projected a new image, a detailed map showing a route from our current location to a small riverside village. Looks like our reptilian friends have thought of everything, I commented, a slight smile forming on my lips despite the seriousness of the situation. We spent the next few hours studying the map and the information provided by the device, preparing ourselves as best we could for the journey ahead. When the first ray of sunshine broke through the treetops, we were ready to go. As we plunged once again into the dense forest, I couldn't help but reflect on how surreal our situation was. Just a few days ago, we were ordinary scientists on a routine expedition. Now, we were fugitives, carrying secrets that could change the course of human history. The weight of the Kihrin device in my makeshift backpack was a constant reminder of the responsibility we carried. It wasn't just about us, or even about science. It was about the future of humanity, the future of our planet. And as we walked towards the unknown, one thing was clear. Nothing would ever be the same. The world was about to change, and we were the catalysts for that change. The question that echoed in my mind, a question that I knew haunted my companions too, was, were we up to the challenge? The journey through the Amazon rainforest was brutal. Days passed as we battled the dense vegetation, the relentless insects, and the suffocating heat. The Kihrin device proved invaluable, not only as a guide, but also as a source of knowledge about the local flora, knowledge that undoubtedly saved our lives more than once. It was on the 5th day of our odyssey that we arrived at the small riverside village indicated on the map. Exhausted, hungry, and disheveled, it must have been quite a sight when we emerged from the forest. Look, Maria pointed, her voice hoarse with fatigue, but with a hint of hope. A boat, indeed, moored to a small wooden pier, was a motorboat that looked capable of taking us downriver. As we approached cautiously, an elderly man emerged from a nearby hut. Ah, you've finally arrived, he said in Portuguese, with an enigmatic smile. We've been waiting for you. We exchanged surprised glances. How could he have known? The old man laughed, as if reading our thoughts. The ancients have many friends, he said, gesturing towards the forest. Come along, you must be exhausted and hungry. Hesitating, we followed him into the hut. Part of me screamed that this could be a trap, but we were too desperate to refuse the offer of help. Inside the simple hut, we found a prepared meal and, to our surprise, clean clothes that looked about our size. How's it? I started to ask, but the old man just smiled again. Eat, rest, we'll leave at dawn, he said, before walking off, leaving us alone with our thoughts and many questions. The night passed in a blur of deep sleep and restless dreams. When we woke up, refreshed but still apprehensive, we found the old man waiting for us on the pier. My name is John. He finally introduced himself. I'll take you to the meeting point. During the journey downstream, João told us a story that challenged everything we thought we knew about the world. My family has been guardians of the secrets of the Kihrin for generations, he explained. We are part of a global network of humans who know the truth and work to protect both the Kihrin and humanity. But why? I asked. Why keep it a secret for so long? John sighed heavily. Humanity hasn't always been ready for this truth. There were times when fear and ignorance would have led to the destruction of both the Kiharin and ourselves. But now things are changing. As we moved along the river, John told us about ancient conflicts between human factions who knew of the existence of the Kiharin. Some, like his group, worked to protect the secret until humanity was ready. Others, like those who persecuted us, wanted to use Kiharin knowledge and technology for their own selfish ends. "And now?" asked Maria. "Why reveal all this now?" "Because time is running out," replied John, his voice laden with concern. "Climate change, the depletion of resources, the Earth is reaching a point of no return. The Kiharin believe that only by revealing the truth and sharing their knowledge can we have a chance of saving our planet." As John spoke, I couldn't help but notice how the landscape around us was changing. The dense forest was giving way to deforested areas, scars in the earth that were a silent testimony to the destruction that humanity was causing. It was on the third day of our boat trip that something unexpected happened. We were sailing along a particularly remote stretch of river when the boat's engine suddenly stopped. "This shouldn't happen," muttered John, frowning as he examined the engine. Before we could offer help, a familiar sound cut through the air, the whirring of helicopter propellers. "Damn!" exclaimed Carlos. "They found us!" But to our surprise, João didn't seem alarmed. On the contrary, a smile spread across his wrinkled face. "Don't worry," he said calmly. "They're our friends." We looked up, dumbfounded, as a military-looking helicopter descended towards us. But instead of the hostile forces we feared, we saw something we never expected. A Kiharin, dressed in what looked like a human military uniform, sitting next to the pilot. The helicopter hovered over the water, and a rope ladder was thrown up. "Climb up!" shouted Kiharin above the roar of the propellers. "We don't have much time." As we hurried up to the helicopter, my mind spun. A Kiharin operating openly with human soldiers. What else didn't we know? Once on board, and with the helicopter gaining altitude, the Kiharin turned to us. "I'm Commander Zix," he introduced himself, his voice with that characteristic hiss we'd heard in the caves. "Welcome to the Resistance." "Resistance?" I asked, confused. "Against what?" Zix exchanged a dark look with John before answering. "Against those who want to use our knowledge to enslave both the Kiharin and humanity," he said gravely. "The situation is more complex and dangerous than you realize. What you discovered in the Amazon was just the tip of the iceberg." As the helicopter cut through the sky towards our unknown destination, I realized that we were about to plunge even deeper into this world of secrets and conspiracies. The truth, it seemed, was even stranger and more dangerous than we had imagined, and we were now at the center of it all. The helicopter was cutting through the night sky, taking us to a destination I could hardly imagine. Next to me, Maria and Carlos looked as stunned as I felt. In front of us, Commander Zix and João chatted quietly, occasionally casting glances in our direction. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the helicopter began to descend. Through the window, I could see an immense structure emerging from the darkness, a facility camouflaged in the depths of the Amazon rainforest. "Welcome to Harmony Base," announced Zix as we landed, the last bastion of cooperation between Kiharin and humans. As we disembarked, I was amazed by what I saw. The facility was a fascinating mix of advanced technology and sustainable architecture. Kiharin and humans worked side by side in a harmony I would never have imagined possible. We were taken to a meeting room where several other Kiharin and humans were waiting for us. Among them, I recognized the faces of renowned scientists who had mysteriously disappeared over the years. A Kiharin came forward. "I'm Dr. Sila," she introduced herself. "Scientific leader of this facility. We've been looking forward to your arrival." "Why?" I asked, still trying to process everything. "What makes our discovery so important?" Sila exchanged a glance with Zix before answering. "The device you are carrying," she explained, "contains more than just our knowledge and history. It holds the key to saving both our species and this planet. Over the next few minutes, Sila and the others presented us with a truth that made our initial discovery seem trivial in comparison. The Earth, they explained, was on the brink of catastrophic environmental collapse. Climate change was accelerating at a rate far beyond the most pessimistic predictions. But there is hope, Sila continued. The knowledge contained in the device, combined with our technology and the brilliance of human scientists, gives us a chance to reverse the damage. Then why all the secrecy? Asked Carlos. Why not reveal it all to the world? Zix replied, his voice grave. Because there are those who would see our technology not as a salvation, but as a weapon. A means of dominating not just this planet, but others. The realization hit me like a punch. Those who persecuted us, they want Kihrin technology to conquer, John added. They see the Kihrin not as allies, but as a threat to be subjugated and exploited. The next few hours were a torrent of information. We learned about a secret war that had been waged for decades between those who sought cooperation and those who desired domination. The fate of Earth, and potentially other worlds, was at stake. And that's why we need you, Sila concluded. As independent scientists, you can be the voice of reason. You can help reveal the truth to the world in a way that will be heard and understood. I looked at Maria and Carlos, seeing in them the same mixture of fear and determination that I felt. We were about to embark on something much bigger than either of us could have imagined. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. We worked tirelessly, analyzing data, developing strategies, preparing for the moment when we would reveal the truth to the world. And then, finally, the day arrived. Standing in front of a United Nations assembly, with Maria and Carlos by my side, Kihrin and humans united behind us, I took a deep breath. The world's cameras were on us. It was the moment of truth. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice echoing through the silent hall. What we are about to reveal will change everything you think you know about our world, our history, and our future. Over the next few hours, and we presented our evidence, the history of the Kihrin, their influence on our development, the crisis we were facing and the solution we had in hand. I saw shock, disbelief, and, finally, understanding on the faces of the audience. It wasn't easy. There was resistance, denial, even attempts to silence us. But the truth, once revealed, could not be contained. In the months and years that followed, the world changed. Cooperation between humans and Kihrin became open. Revolutionary technologies were implemented to combat climate change. Society was transformed in ways I could barely imagine. It wasn't a smooth transition. There were conflicts, difficult adjustments, moments when everything seemed about to fall apart. But slowly and surely, we saw the dawn of a new era. Now, years after that fateful expedition in the Amazon, I look out of my office window at Harmony Base. Outside, I see Kihrin and humans working side by side, the lush forest stretching as far as the eye can see. In the sky, Kihrin-designed ships take off on reforestation and environmental restoration missions. Maria and Carlos, now leaders in their own fields of human-Kihrin hybrid research, often remind me of how it all began. How three ordinary scientists found themselves at the center of a cosmic revolution. Sometimes, I still find myself marveling at the journey that brought us here. From a routine expedition in the Amazon to a global transformation, from a world on the brink of collapse to a future of infinite possibilities. And I think about how knowledge, truth, and cooperation can be the most powerful forces in the universe. How, in the face of the unknown, we choose not fear but understanding, not domination but partnership. As I watch a group of children, some human, some Kihrin, playing together in the base garden, I feel a surge of hope. The future we have helped to create is just beginning, and who knows what wonders it will bring. The journey that began in that hidden cave in the Amazon continues, and I can't wait to see where it takes us next.